talking about 10 steps to take to start a small business so you can start planning and launch your business idea in the new year. So the first thing you're going to want to do is some research. And by research, I mean know your market. It's really important if you are creating a service or product to introduce into your market to determine whether or not you have actual interest in your market for that type of activity or whether you have that need. Also, you need to know your business. So you really need to know what it is that you are doing. And that doesn't mean that that can't evolve over time, but you really have to have a clear vision for the business that you're launching. And you also want to know the laws about things like sales tax, conducting business, what you need to file, things that you need to have. You need to do all that research up front before you invest a huge amount of time and energy into creating this business. The second thing you need to do is to create a plan. You actually need to create two plans. The first plan that you need to create is your business plan. And sometimes this can be overwhelming and intimidating, especially if someone doesn't have a business background. And when I say business plan, I'm not necessarily talking about some, 115 page, formal bullet pointed document that you have to, laminate, whatever. I'm talking about just really putting your ideas down, working through them, working through, what your goals are, how you plan to shape this, scale this, what your overall plan is for clients, which includes actually sitting down and thinking about who your target clients are, what that looks like, what they do, what their interests are, where they're located. Just really create this overall plan so you have a starting point and be flexible, be able to pivot if things aren't working or if you see kind of a new need arise or something that you hadn't anticipated. And then you want to be very intentional and kind of take it one step at a time. The second plan that you need to have is a financial plan. So you're going to want to be conscientious here and be smart about it. I see a lot of business owners, go all in, which is great. You want to go all into your business idea, but they go all in financially as well. Maybe take on a lot of overhead, invest in a lot of technology, invest in a lot of different things without actually testing those things, without actually spending time learning those things or even really knowing what their business needs to look like. So be very strategic in where you're going to spend your money. You also need to consider how that's going to be funded. Are you going to be able to self-fund it? Do you have the funds to be able to do that, not just initially, but ongoing? Do you need to get a line of credit from a bank? Do you need a small loan? Are you seeking, external investors? And what does that look like if you need internal investments or partners, not only financially, but what stake do they have in your company? What financial interests are they going to have? And how is that going to impact your financial interest and the operations of the business? You're also going to want to consider how you're going to eat in the interim. So I do say it's a good idea to go all in, but also, if you don't necessarily have the capital and you need some other revenue stream to help support your new business, that's okay. If you do need to take that external investment and dilute your interest a bit, that may be what you need to do, but just be smart about it. Don't rush into it and really think out, not only how you're going to get started, but how you're going to sustain yourself, at least for a good bit of time, because a lot of times I see business owners with wonderful ideas and great businesses, and they think I'm just going to put myself out there and, hang my shingle, advertise my services, and, the floodgates will open, people will come in. And yeah, that's the goal. And you probably do have a great idea, and that's probably going to eventually happen. But business doesn't necessarily boom overnight. So you just want to make sure that you are planning so you're not stressful, because when we get stressed out, we tend to maybe take on clients that we wouldn't take, or that we don't want to take, or that aren't an ideal fit for our business, or we kind of make rush judgments just because we want that financial security or because we don't have a choice. So, creating your business, you're able to have a lot more freedom and choice. And then if you're having to take clients that you don't want, if you're having to do things that you don't want to do or just rush into things, then you really don't have the control, and it really takes away from part of the reason a lot of people start their own businesses. So be mindful of that. The third thing you want to do is choose your business structure and your tax structure. So early on, it's really good to at least consult an attorney, consult a CPA. We here at MyVirtual.Lawyer like to kind of collaborate with CPAs when businesses are forming, or at least have our clients talk to their CPAs before they even come to us. So that way we're all on the same page, because your CPA typically will have a more holistic view of both your business and personal finances and goals. And then we're able to kind of tell you, the legal side of that, what that looks like, what your obligations are, and how that might apply to the business that you're wanting to create. You're going to want to consider what type of entity that you're creating, whether that's a corporation, an LLC, a sole proprietorship. They each have different requirements. They each have different rules. There's different things that apply to them. There are things that you need to do. There are limitations. So you really want to make sure that you are choosing the correct entity for the business that you're creating. And some industries even have specific entities that must be created for you to operate in that business. Usually that's certain types of professional licensed businesses. You're also going to want to consider tax consequences. So how you're treated from a tax perspective, how the IRS is going to look at you. Something that's pretty common for LLCs and corporations. A lot of times people will elect an S election to be treated as an S corp, and that's just a tax treatment. A lot of times when I ask people what they want to be, they say S corp. Really, the entity you are is a corporation. The S part is an election for how you want the IRS to treat you for tax purposes. And depending on your goals, it's just going to show you, the election is going to be how you were treated, how you were taxed, and what that looks like. So it's not necessarily going to be a good fit for you because I have an S corp, that you should get an S corp. So it's going to depend on your goals, your business, things like that. The fourth thing is to pick and register a name. So the earlier the better. Sometimes people will sit on it for a minute, and if you do that, you can go ahead and pick a name and do a name reservation. There's a small fee for that with the Secretary of State's office. If you're not quite ready to start your business, but you want to reserve your name, you can also go on there, or we can do this for you, or whoever you're working with can do this for you, and search different names to see if they're available. But I always tell people to come up with probably about 3 different options. That way, if your first name isn't available because it's too closely related to something else and there may be some confusion, you do have a backup name. You also want to kind of at least do a quick Google search to see what else is out there. Whether you're needing to get a local or a federal trademark, if that's something that you want, if you need to protect your name, which is always a good idea. It's always good on the front end to kind of research that, see what's out there, and see, learn a little bit of if whether or not that name is even, able to be trademarked. You're going to want to also grab social handles. People don't necessarily think about that until they get to the point where they're building out their social media platforms. But sometimes people are mean, and they will go, you file it and they'll see that it's filed, and they will go grab up your handle, and they'll, ransom it off to you and hold it hostage. We actually had that happen with MyVirtual.Lawyer on Twitter. And it was before we were even an entity, but the person has never acted as MyVirtual.Lawyer. They just found that opportunity a couple years before we were established, and they don't use it. And when we reached out, they said, well, we'll give it to you, but it's this price. And so, unfortunately, there are people like that, and it's difficult to get that released to you if you don't have some kind of intellectual property like a trademark to be able to get that back, because the social media platforms don't like to get involved. The fifth thing that you need to do is get your legal affairs in order. And a lot of times people wait to do the legal stuff until they think they need it, or they do the stuff on their own, which is dangerous for a lot of reasons. And I'm not just pushing legal services and hiring a lawyer, because there are things that you can do yourself. But it's really good to at least talk to an attorney, because an attorney can kind of guide you, let you know, where you're vulnerable, where you need to be protected. Some things that you may need beyond just the formation is operating documents. employee contracts, employee handbooks, if there are any kind of contracts that you need with clients, if you have clients and you're providing services. Things like that are really important on the front end, because if you don't have that in place and then an issue comes up, it's really, really hard to get any kind of solution after the fact. So just be aware of that. Also, you need to pay attention to getting your stuff set up. That's number 6, getting set up. So scout locations. If you need a physical presence, then location is important. Getting licenses and permits. If you're operating online or from a home-based business, that doesn't mean that you don't need a city license. Your city, and this is going to vary city to city, your city may require you to actually have a license, and it may not necessarily be called work from home license. It may be called something else, but definitely look into that. And depending on what it is you're selling or offering, you're going to want to look and see if there are certain permits that are required. And you're also going to want to make sure that you have your state and federal tax IDs in place, because a lot of the things you're setting up, you won't be able to do without that ID. You're also going to want to do market research and gather feedback. And you do not have to stop and put it off 6 months just to test the market, put it out there and, see what people think and then get it perfect, because there's never going to be a perfect time. But what you can do is actually just start doing what you're doing after you're set up, and then have, your clients give you feedback, whether that's, sending out a feedback form, offering some kind of, discount or value for that. Having people actively participate in creating your product or service is invaluable. So you can do that while you're actually in business. So you're not losing money during that time. You're actually making money and perfecting your product or service. Number 8, just some other stuff that you need to consider. Insurance, the different types of insurance, whether that's, a professional insurance that's required by your industry, whether that is some kind of work hazard insurance, whether that is, life insurance. If you have partners, it's always a good idea. Estate planning, people overlook estate planning. If you don't have a will in place and you have a business, you have something to put in your will. A lot of times we hear people say, well, I don't have anything to include in my will. I don't have enough stuff, or I'm brand new and I just started this business. But it's really important to have a succession plan. It's really important to, make sure that you have all those things lined up, and also make sure that you have a business bank account. It's okay temporarily if you have that, personal account. I wouldn't advise it. I would say really early on, if not at the start, go ahead and get a separate business bank account, because you're not wanting to, commingle those funds. It's difficult to separate that out, and that's separate property of the business. Also, if you're building a team, if that's applicable to whatever it's doing, you need to really pay attention to, wage requirements, your state's laws on that, how you're hiring, the onboarding process, what that looks like, what status you're going to give these individuals on your team, whether they're contractors, whether they're employees, what that looks like, what documents are needed, what other contracts or documents are needed for that employer-contractor relationship or anything they're doing with you. So you want to pay attention to that. And last but not least, you want to market your business. And so, marketing your business, create a marketing plan. Work with somebody to create one if you're not confident in that. But you can sit down and create a social media calendar. You can, plan out how you are going to network, who you're going to target. Just be really intentional. You can throw things out there and see if it works. But the best marketing plan, in my opinion, is to go and, have a strategy. Figure out, who is your target market. What other professionals interact with your target market? Who can you, collaborate with to bring in clients and, reciprocate that with them? So those are just a few things to think about, 10 things to help you get started and launching your business in the new year. Laura will be here next week talking about family law at 11:30 Central. So thanks for joining today, and hope you have a great week.